So let's jump straight into it. 2.2 as a content patch adds a huge amount to the game, especially in terms of like item updates and new items and new sets and things like that. I would say it's one of the more impressive major patches we've had in quite a while.
Thank you. Awesome.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Is this a trend you'd like to continue for future major patches? Or is this a bit of a special case, sort of one-off major expansion, major patch here?
You know, the team has, like you said, they've put a ton of work into this patch, and some of it is based on feedback that we've received. You know, a good example is the focus and restraint set. People were like, "Hey, when are you guys going to make that good?" Right? And we're like, "You know what? That's a great point." So that change gets in, and there's still more to do. People still look at, for example, legendary weapons, in much the same way that we got feedback on a lot of rings that really weren't doing much, and we really prioritized making awesome rings this time around. I think you can expect to see us revamping weapons too. I can't really comment on the scope of the change, except to say that we still have a lot on our to-do list. 2.2, you know, everyone knows we introduced 3 new sets, right? We got the Whirlwind set for the Barbarian, which is awesome. Then we've got the Magnum Opus set, which is based around slow time for the Wizard, and we've got a new set for the Demon Hunter based on multi-shot, right? And that's great and that's exciting, but we also have plans to introduce, you know, 3 more sets for the 3 other classes in a future patch.
Yeah, perfect.
So yeah, I mean, you know, 3 now, 3 later. And just for the record, you know, the classes that, well, actually all the classes also had some revisions to their existing sets. So even for the 3 classes, you know, the Witch Doctor, the Monk, and the Crusader, who didn't get a new set this time around, they did receive updates to their existing sets.
Yeah, that's it. Nice. So, 2.3, potentially a tentative release for the other 3 sets as well, it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, 2.3 is a ways off. We have already started work on it.
Yep.
I mean, the way our development cycle works, we start working on something sort of like in parallel. So work on 2.3 started, honestly, gosh, some of the stuff that's going into 2.3 was started even before the last BlizzCon, the last time we talked. And that's, you know, it's just some things take a while in lot planning and some things are quicker.
Yeah.
Particularly if it requires new art, then we have to plan further ahead. Again, you know, to use focus and restraint or the rework on some of the rings as an example, those ones don't require new art if it doesn't have a new power, but it does involve, you know, some design and some testing. So we're able to get those into 2.2.
Awesome. So this next question has probably been one of the most requested out of all of the community questions that I sort of pulled from. Mortick's braces. The Barb community was very hyped for this particular item. A lot of people also agreed that it was too strong and probably needed some significant changes. And they gave sort of a lot of feedback on it in the PTR. In addition to this, it seems like the Barb may be a little bit weak without it now in the current patch. That's kind of seems like the feeling of most people. So there's been a bit of frustration over the way it was removed. One community, for example, creatively compared it to being told that they wouldn't be getting any Christmas presents on Christmas morning after they'd already spent 2 hours searching for their Christmas presents under the tree. So my question is, how did the dev team feel about Mortick's braces, and what went into the decision to remove it right at the last moment?
So, you know, up front, I don't think we handled that very well, to be honest. I feel badly for the way that we handled that. We didn't do that well, and you know, I do apologize to the barbarians and the ones who were there. That wasn't good. So some background on that is we actually made the decision not to have those bracers in 2.2 just over a week ago.
Yep.
And so we had them disabled for our internal builds, and we did some internal testing with the bracers off, and we ran some numbers and some calculations, and we said, you know what, these bracers aren't ready. As many people in the community have pointed out, they were very overpowered, and there were some revisions that we could make, and we said, you know what, these just aren't ready. So we removed them. but there were a number of other issues, such as they didn't get removed from the patch notes in time, and they also weren't removed from the console version, which, for those who don't know, we go through a submission process with Sony and Microsoft to get the console submitted, and it gets signed off by them, and then it goes up, and there's a process involved. And unfortunately, the long and the short of it is that we feel the game's in a really good place now. It's always been our goal that each of the classes has not just one, but multiple competitive builds. And that's one of the things I'm excited about Season 3 and Patch 2.24 is every class has at least one, if not two, and in some cases 3 different builds that are all capable of, Greater Rift 50 or higher, which is, unprecedented. And our goal with the bracers removed, I think you're going to see all the classes within, a couple of greater rifts of each other at the very top end.
Yeah.
So we feel like the game's in a pretty good place. Again, I'll reiterate, we didn't handle it very well. Our communication was not great on the issue, and we will try to do better on that in the future.
Awesome stuff. Is there any plan to bring them back in the near future with any balance changes? Anything you can talk about yet with that?
There's a lot of options on the table. I think some of the slots, one of the questions right off is a bracer the right slot for it? What is the right effect? Should it just be one rune? I've seen that suggestion as well. People want, the Striding Giant, so ability options. There's lots, and fortunately we have, a good development cycle that we can look at what the right answer is.
Yeah. Good stuff. Thank you for answering that. I'm sure a lot of people will be keen to hear it. So the next question I have is on the topic of power creep and its effects on gameplay variety. So currently, with some work, all classes can farm Torment 6 with multiple builds most of the time now. Power creep is definitely occurring in the game. We're seeing things like Ancient Legendaries and stuff come out. And this happens, as this happens, players progress to a point where the relevant content is limited to high-level greater rifts for them. So that kind of reduces the diversity of what they can actually do in game. So at the lower levels of power, there's a lot of variety. We've got bounty missions, we've got all this different stuff that we can do, and sometimes you'll have to go back and do that. But it feels like there's a lot more variety at the lower power levels. So my question is, are there any sort of plans to either curb power creep or add additional difficulties or otherwise offer greater variety at the top end of gameplay?
Well, we are always, so there is a little bit of power creep. And usually that's because as we add new items, there's a certain expectation that these items are going to make more powerful. So to a certain degree, that's inevitable. On the flip side, players also ask for a build diversity. And honestly, it's hard to have both constant power creep and diversity because usually as things get better, one of them tends to stick out from the crowd a little bit. And when things are put under a microscope of, like, for example, if we moved Torment 6 to be equivalent in difficulty or, increased rewards to the level of Greater Rift 50, but then, as a Torment setting, I think all of a sudden a lot of builds wouldn't be viable for Torment 6.
Yeah. Viable is like 10 farm
It's
Torment 6,
yeah,
exactly.
And it's not black or white. Like, maybe we do need a few more settings that are higher, but we don't want the Torment Rift farming scenario to push your character to the limits. That is what Greater Rifts are for.
Okay. So currently that's the sort of the main idea is that is the upper bounds for builds to test themselves.
We kind of like that Torment 6 is farming mode where a lot of builds are reasonable and on kill effects have a good place, and sometimes you can get there's lots of builds basically that work for Torment 6 farming that don't work at the very high end of Greater Rifts, and honestly vice versa. There's Greater Rift builds that aren't necessarily the most efficient T6 farming builds, and we like that difference exists, but as power creep continues, the gap between the two is probably worth examining. Not for 2.2 though. I think for 2.2 we're pretty excited that I think we have more build diversity in the upcoming season than we've ever seen before. So let's see how that pans out and then go from there.
Yeah, I think there's some things that we probably can't talk about yet in the future that have been, data mined and stuff like that. So I guess that would probably answer my question when things like that start coming out. So this next one, I only require a very short answer, but people would chastise me if I didn't ask it. Is the current stash situation a gameplay design decision, or is it a technical or financial limitation of the game?
Oh gosh. I don't know if I can give you a short answer to that.
Okay.
It's a complex issue.
Yeah.
So the reality is that we can't give people infinite stash space. And I hope that people understand that.
Yeah, I know from other games that storing unique items in databases gets pretty costly.
And especially when you're dealing with the millions of players that we have and some of our infrastructure and such. So we can't do infinite. It's no secret. I can't go into a lot of detail, but it's no secret that we're releasing in China pretty soon, and we're looking at that. And there is a different business model in China that you only start with one stash tab, but there is an option to purchase more.
Yep.
I think we want to see, maybe see how that goes. Does it have a pay-to-win fear? Is something that's come up. Blizzard really believes in fair play for everyone, and we really want to avoid things that feel like they would be pay-to-win. I know some people feel that stash space wouldn't be pay-to-win. They're like, well, it's stash space, but at the same time, for a game like Diablo, holding on to your items is valuable, so it might be perceived that way.
So do you think it's possible, if this goes well in China, that the potential of expanding stashes through an MTX would be possible?
That's really not something I can comment on. All I can say is that, I guess it'd be the elephant in the room if I didn't at least acknowledge that it is something that we're doing there. And we need to see how it feels. I'm very protective of not being pay to win. And so I sort of approach things cautiously, and again, we just have these constraints that we can't just give you infinite tabs, right? And I think if we went in and said, okay, everybody gets one more tab, then everyone would want more, right? And I think that is true, and so we have to kind of figure out, well, how do we reconcile all of these factors?
Alrighty. Next question I'd like to ask is on season length. So I'm personally stoked that we have seasons in Diablo 3 now. It's an awesome addition to the game. I feel that within the context of Diablo 3, though, 4 months is a little too long for a season to last. I believe a recent blue post actually said 4 months, at least 4 months, I think was the wording, so it could potentially be longer. How do you feel about season length?
A recent blue post from me. So yes, I'm familiar with that post.
There you go.
But our first season was about 5.5 months long, and we received feedback that felt long. And this last season was 2 months long, and some people said it's just right. Some people said it was still too long, and a lot of people, though, said it was too short. And I think what that comes down to is that different people have different play styles at the end of the day. And different people are looking to get something different out of the game. I mean, some people even say, we want 1 week seasons. And I think that but when you're talking about 1 week seasons, it's actually a totally different audience. This is an audience who is more concerned about racing as fast as you can. They're not really interested in, for example, getting a full set of ancient items in every slot using their perfect set, right? So it's a completely different mentality, and we'll never be able to make both groups happy. The selection of the 4 months is definitely that we are currently looking at the journey of the people who want a fresh start, but still want a sense of investment in their character. So for the people who are only interested in the race, this will seem long. And also for the people who, for example, play a lot, this will seem long.
So you feel like 4 months is a good time for getting the entire scope of the Diablo 3 story as developing a character?
I think 3 months would have been fine as well.
Okay.
I think that we sort of view 3 to 4 as being a good range.
All right.
And this time we're trying at least 4. I mean, it's really a matter that no one's ever going to be happy, but we kind of want to try these different lengths and say, okay, well, what percentage of our players were able to complete their 6-piece set after 3 months?
Yeah, so it's up for review based on how it goes with this season, obviously.
Yeah, and it's like, like what percentage of players are able to get their portrait frame. Like I don't know if you one of the things that we have in season 3 is there's a new pennant that you get for reaching 100 achievement points in the season, and there's a portrait frame that you get at 400. And both of these are super cool because it's the 3-year anniversary of Diablo, so they're kitted around looking kind of like 3-year anniversary portrait frames and pennants, and we'll be tracking like what percentage of people have unlocked this after 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, and that'll give us a sense of sort of like how do these different styles of players interact with the season.
Okay, awesome
and
stuff.
That that people get a lot out of it, and then when we are looking and calibrating our rewards for future seasons, we can make sure that honestly, the pennant is supposed to be a everyone who loves Diablo should be able to get this, and the portrait frame is more of a, the dedicated player should be able to get this. And so we'll be able to track and make sure that we can calibrate our rewards accordingly.
Thanks for that.
To the last 2 questions.
All right, I have a good way to close this out. A series of rapid fire yes or no questions. So that'll take 30 seconds or so.
Okay.
All right. Get ready.
I'm going to say no comment to some of them if I can't yes, no them.
That's fair enough. I'll accept that. So, do you plan on making solo play more rewarding? Yes or no?
Pretty happy with where it is. I think there's some concern over legendary gems. So, no immediate plans, but maybe long term.
No, but yes later. Okay, good. Will the Nemesis monsters from console D3 make their way to PC anytime soon?
I think the top 2 requested features from console are sidekicking and Nemesis, and so we have kind of looked at both of them at one time or another. Okay. It kind of goes both ways, that there are some features on console that that they would like from PC as well.
All right. Any possibility of followers being shared between characters?
Yes, someday. As you can probably tell, there's a lot of things on our to-do list. It's something, I'm sorry. When I say yes, it's because you said possibility of. I can't promise it.
Yes.
It's something that we immediately we started looking at it, and immediately it was what happens in hardcore. What happens when I'm leveling a new character? If I level a new character and I unlock my follower, what happens to that gear when I hit 70? So basically, there's basically a bunch of UI work that would be involved in that. It's not an unsolvable problem. It's just, players are gonna it's just like, how does this prioritize against all the other things that players would also like?
I would have accepted a simple yes, it's possible.
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't accept it because then people are gonna quote me afterwards of saying, "Well, 4 months."
Yes.
Promise.
I'm sorry.
The followers linked, and I'm like, I didn't promise that. I just said it's possible.
Exactly. Should we keep an eye on E3 for any Diablo-related news?
No, I can't comment on future news scheduled releases.
Fair enough.
Sorry.
The final one is, we have seen some improvements for 2-piece sets in 2.2. Will other 2-piece sets be getting any reworks in the next patch to be on par?
Yeah, some of them. I think, I've got my eye on the Traveler's Pledge, Compass Rose. We did the Focus and Restraint in particular, because this patch, I'm sorry, you keep asking yes, no. Yes, we keep doing it.
Awesome.
And the Whirlwind set, weapon pair was done because we have a Whirlwind set coming in 2.2 in Season 3, and we thought people would love to be able to do that. And Focus and Restraint is because we had a huge ring focus this patch, and we have like over a half dozen new awesome rings that are going into 2.2.
Alrighty. Well, I've taken up way too much time. I know I've gone super over time. I'm evil. I'm sorry.
You know what's funny? I don't think I said yes or no to a single one of your yes no questions.
To be honest, I kind of half expected that. That's okay. I don't think anyone will mind. So finally, my personal thing is, thank you for removing regular potions. That's what I want to close out with.
Oh, no problem at all. Yeah, it's just a universal button now, and now people don't need an auto pick up health potion button, right?
It's good. It was my least favorite thing. All right, perfect. Thank you so much for your time, Wyatt, and I applaud you guys for what you've been doing with Diablo 3. I think the game's going really well.
Thanks, Ziggy. Hey, question for you. Do you
Sure.
know, have you decided what class you're going to be playing in Season 3 yet?
It's hard to go past Demon Hunter, especially with the new set out. I was gonna play another new class. I was gonna play another class, but then with the new set, I have to play Demon Hunter.
Unhallow-essence?
Yeah, I have to get on there.
All right, awesome. Good. I hope you find lots of success with the Demon Hunter.
I think it's gonna be fun. Alrighty, thanks so much for your time,
Well,
Wyatt.
catch you later, Ziggy D.
Have a good
Bye.
one. Bye.